My name is Wanjiku Kironyo. I'm a counseling psychologist who have worked for many years in communities that are disadvantaged in Kenya. I have also traveled in many parts of the world as a motivational speaker. I'd like to take some time to reflect on some of the problems that has faced Africa as a result of the colonialism. The colonizer of this continent saw many resources that they took advantage of. First, they came here and took away many people and enslaved them in the developing countries, such as the West. And many of those people who left the continent lost their identity, their culture, their tradition, and have to acquire the Western culture in order to survive. And of course, it's the only thing that was left after many years of losing contact with each other and also losing contact with the continent. The country, Africa, that was left behind with a lot of resources which they saw, such as the good climate for their plantation, they were able to colonize the Africa by first and foremost dividing it among themselves. And the division of the region were based on the resources that were available in each country. The divide of the country also created a lot of boundary issues, where even today many of our internal conflicts in Africa, internal wars, political problems, and also poverty is all related to the way the Africa was divided. And therefore we ended up with the countries that are ruled by so many people, many presidents who many cannot see eye to eye or cannot come together and think through the development of this continent because of the competition that was established and also the fear of the losing of the power. That division itself has always been taken advantage of by the West, and the African society has always capitalized on the division because the enmity between each other has allowed many of them to continue to rule the continent for years. Politicians who fight their way to the parliament in African continent also capitalize on the division among people based on their tribal basis, because if there was no enemy of other tribes, it's very difficult for them to see their way to parliament. If we look at what was left behind in this continent after the colonialism, after the people fought for their independence, we were left with a skeleton. There was very little education that was based on our cultural, traditional values, because the education that was introduced was very much meant to maintain the Western values in the continent. And therefore, people who could be able to utilize their internal resources have always continued to look at the West as a source of their resources. Many people were not educated by the time the country became independent. However, Africans established either their own schools, like Harambee schools, or the government introduced formal education. Many people became educated. However, the education pulled them away from the values, the traditional that they are aware of, that was their foundation, and introduced them to foreign values that has not been able to sustain their future. Educated Africans migrate to the urban areas in search for better opportunities. The result is such an individual become even more poorer, because when you come from the village and you have some education and you have a job, whatever little resources that you have, the number one thing is to look back where you came from and support your people. And because of the major problem of health, education, such individuals are the ones who have to fund the whole family when there is sicknesses, when there is a job requirement, training, or education. And therefore their resources is usually spread too thin. What we find in this continent now is that because of the poverty that we have experienced, because of the diseases and the war that has affected Africa, and because of lack of supporting mechanism, there's a desperation for people to move from the villages to the urban areas and finding themselves coming to the city to live in a lifestyle that is even more poorer than the life they left behind. Young girls and young boys find themselves encouraged to participate in activities that are very dehumanizing to them. Young girls as young as 13 years are now involved in prostitution. The prostitution in this continent of Africa is a very major activity. The main client that they focus on are the people from the West. Those are people who come from countries that believe in not exploitation of young people because of the law that is against such activities. And therefore, sex with the minor is considered as a major crime in the West. And therefore you find that these people will come to Africa to abuse the young people. There is a lot of movement from the poor slums areas of young girls and boys migrating to the coasts, looking for the tourists who come particularly to Africa for sex trade. The tourism in the African continent brings the government a lot of money. And even though there are laws that are totally against the sexual activities with the minor, the system itself have not been able to implement that. Where the hotels are not even allowed to bring in or allow a minor to participate in or to spend the night in the hotel, they will close their eyes because that is where most of the tourists from the West come for such activities. So drug, alcoholism, and prostitution go hand in hand together. Young boys and girls are introduced to drugs at a very early age so that they can numb their feelings from the activities that are so abusive to them. Many of them are coming from families that have been exposed to major poverty and live in a very poor condition. And so the family encourages such young people to go into prostitution because it's the only way that they see possible to earn some income. Such young girls and boys are encouraged to support their families through trading with their bodies. There are a lot of people young people who find themselves involved in the pimps activities, and therefore you see a lot of kidnapping of young girls. Again, because of the poverty that many of the young people experience and the family problem resulting from the poverty and the violence within the family that forces the girls to leave the home at a very early age. Little do they know that in the urban areas, when they come to the urban areas, there are already people who are willing to introduce them to this activity so that they themselves can benefit from whatever they are doing to these young people. Girls who faces the problem, like some of them I have talked to, faces the problem of having had a quarrel either with the mother, and particularly when they come from a single parent, or the mother has been in conflict with the girl where she claimed that either the stepfather or her father is sexually abusing her. Often those girls are not believed by the mother when they say that, and they normally opt to leave home. And again, some of them come to the city looking for jobs as house girls, and the aunt or friends introduce them into the trade at a very early age. Again, you find even the schoolgirls who want more than what they can, family can afford, will come to the city on the weekends and get involved with the rich people as sugar daddies, and before you know it, they find that you can get involved in trading your bodies. And from the sugar daddies, mostly they graduate to bigger client, and the bigger client are the people who come from the West, who come here as tourists, hiding in that concept of tourism, but actually they are involved, they are here for sex tourism. We also find that some communities that are very poor in the slums area, you find the young girls who have seen their mothers trading their body as they sell the changa or the local brew. They're introduced to the concept at a very early age, where the client who come to buy the alcohol from the mother will start introducing sex to these young girls for money. A lot of these young girls start the trade as young as 12 years. And by the time they are 16, they are fully involved into the activity. We all know that there are many cases where the people who initially colonized Africa have come back as a third or fourth generation. Now they are not looking for any other trade of resources other than the human exploitation, and they are particularly come here because they know that this is countries where you can get away with the law against sexual exploitation. They are looking for young boys. They are looking for young boys and girls. And we have seen and read and become aware of so many stories that have been shared by people who are caught in those trades. And those are stories that don't move beyond the first appearance in court. And therefore, these people know that with the money you can get away with it. And so we are aware that a lot of our university graduates, girls, boys, are getting involved in these sex trade activities. We have seen the increasing number of the brothel. You find that other than other businesses, we have more brothels in this country, starting from the slums all the way to the city centers, and even some neighborhood where once family lived in what you call the well-to-do neighborhood. Houses are now converted into brothels, high-class prostitution. We know the consequences of such activities. We have seen that for young people, they die at a very young age, and if they live with diseases. Most of the activities leave them psychologically so abused. Most of them get into drugs at a very early age. My question is it all gone? Have we lost it all? Why do we continue to allow this in the continent? Why can't we even look at this second or third coming of the people who once colonized us as now coming to finish the continent? Why can't we be strict on the law against sex tourism? How come we don't punish those people that have been caught from coming from foreign countries, particularly with this kind of activities? We know that drugs now have been introduced in schools. We have even seen cases where the drugs are now being used to bake cakes, sweets, and even roasted meats, so that the people can be introduced to the drugs at a very early age. And we know the consequences. Once people become addicted to any kind of drugs, the next thing is to do anything under the sun to get some money to carry on with the activities. I believe something can be done. And I believe that we can only start from the top down, not bottom up. Schools, I know they can do it from the bottom up, the churches can do it, but also our policies within the government can address the issue. We should not let this continent go to the dogs, because that is exactly what looks like is going to happen if we don't do something about it. There's no future of our young generation. And there's no reason why we can continue to close our eyes to these problems. It's something that we can all look at it as a problem that is going to affect every one of us in the near future. Thank you.